Should we start with Mohit first?
Okay, Sunil, that's okay.
Okay. I'm just typing the question. You just read it and you can start giving your answers. You can see this screen, right? What I'm typing.
Yes, Sunil.
Okay.
So Sunil, basically traceability matrix, requirement traceability matrix is all about managing the requirements. So once you have the managements from the, once you have the requirements from the user or the client, then you maintain the life cycle of those requirement by creating user stories and epics, and like having product backlog, and then um, moving it to the sprint backlogs as the active sprint as per your prioritization techniques. And I have used it in a project like where I was working in AIG right now. So I used to gather requirements, and then we used to like have a lot of sessions and meetings with my with the user, and I used to sit with SMEs to understand the process, and then I used to like try to understand what they want me to achieve, uh, and then after that I created some requirements and allocated it to the different stakeholders to understand what they are like, how they want to prioritize it. I used Moscow technique in this, and after that like going into after that I went into like based on that priority I moved it forward to the active sprint.
Okay. So requirement traceability matrix, is it only applicable for the projects which are being executed via agile methodology, or is it also applicable for projects via waterfall methodology as well?
Um, so I uh, more used with Agile, but any time you use any methodology, if there is a change request or something like that, you need a change or to make changes, you need to make a note of it, and so requirement traceability metrics might come into that.
Okay. Okay. Low fidelity prototypes are the other name for paper-based prototypes.
Okay, so that got me confusing. Okay, so I've used throwaway prototypes a lot, and in my current project, wherein the user wanted me to design a process, so like the existing underwriting process for the AIG insurance. So over there, they wanted an online portal. So creating a portal, I used to use these prototypes and throwaway prototypes, wherein I used to I created it and start with the user and showed them the prototype, so that if they are of the required standards as per them, and after that, I also discussed it with like my UI UX developer team, so that they can give it a proper shape.
Okay.
Hey, Sunil, so you're just asking whether like how we took advantage of the low fidelity prototype system?
No, I was essentially seeking what are the process that you have gone through while creating low fidelity prototypes, not the advantages.
Oh, okay, okay.
So Sunil, it was like okay, na, the answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Sunil.
No, these questions
So,
are only for Mohit. Rest all, please be quiet. I'll come to you.
oh, okay, okay.
Just give me a second, Sunil. I'll just let me just figure it out. So, Sunil, while I was working on my existing project, like again with AIG, so in that project, I used the UML and use case scenario, wherein I had to represent uh, the uh, the view of the system, that how we have created I had to create a model of the system, like how the system would interact and everything. And I use stick figures and other models like to represent actors, and I created use cases to show the flow of the system. And I, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sunil. I might have to take this call. It might be a vendor call.
Okay, you can
I'm,
take your
I'm
call.
just a minute. I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
If you want to continue with someone, if you can. But overall, I'll just say using use cases, actors, stick figures, association, generalization, and everything. I'm sorry. I'll be back.
Okay, okay, not an issue. Who wants to come next?
um, I can.
Yeah, please start. The
Okay,
question is same.
okay. So, I've used UML, like various diagrams in UML modeling. I have used use case as you mentioned. I also used activity sequence and ER diagrams for the project.
Mm-hmm.
We were recently in the recent project. I was working on an order tracking system
Mm-hmm.
with a company. So we created use case diagrams for the web portal. I worked on use case diagram for the sign in, sign up, registration uh, thing also.
Mm-hmm.
We create different kind of we take the requirements, we see who are the actors, and then accordingly we'll see what actors each use case is related to, and we have used different things like include extents and everything to make use case diagram. Other than that, I've made ER diagrams for the data modeling, and I've also done the process flow diagrams like as and to be diagrams.
Okay. What's the difference between include and extend?
Uh, Include is something that is necessary after that step, and extend is that is some extra added feature that comes into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So include, for example, we can say for ATM machine, I would say as an example, we can say we can include that withdrawing money and depositing money, functions. We can say they like, if you uh, put a pin, withdraw money is include, but if there is like a balance, a transfer request, do you want to print it or not? That can be a extend feature.
Okay. And how do you show an extend in an UML? What is the
Uh,
trigger point?
we use an arrow, outside arrow, pointing towards the extended feature.
No, it is extension points, a dark dash line within that oval shape.
Okay, okay, sorry. Wait, I need to do on the arrows and all stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, so for if it's a large user story, I'll try to divide the story in the ways like, if there are some functionalities that are, I'll basically use grouping, and I'll talk to the developers at first who is going to work on that user story and ask them that what they are comfortable with, and we'll try and assess like what all features can be done in that particular user story together and how you can work on the other things.
Okay.
I'll find out the independent parts of the user story.
And can you give me an example of few of the grouping mechanism that you would use?
A large user story.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd say if the user story is like, hmm, just a moment, I need.
Okay, it would be based on your user profiles who would be essentially
Okay.
part of that system, or else the input and output mechanism that you would be using. User stories can also be
Okay.
placed
So
based on the test scenarios. So there are multiple things
okay.
basis on which you should be able to split the user story.
Okay. 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 So the difference between scribe and facilitator, that's what I think in a requirements meeting will be. Scribe is essentially a person who will just attend the meeting, sit there and like take notes or meeting minutes. Like, just he won't give any input into the meeting, but he'll be just taking the notes basically.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, the facilitator is the person who will arrange the meeting. He'll be the main. He'll discuss like the context of the meeting and all stuff. But the scribe is the person who'll just be there present, just taking notes, but giving no inputs or nothing like that.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So I've been a part of conducting many few head sessions. So basically, the sessions I've conducted were because there were some issues that the development team side was not sure or clear about it. They had ambiguous views about that. So I had a head session regarding that particular situation. And the requirement, like documenting the requirement leveraging that part, I would say I did like I took all the doubts of those people and I tried to assess them and tried and talked with the uh, user or the stakeholder and I tried to explain the problems and tried to get a better view from the user side and then I documented the requirement. I made it a little more unambiguous and clear for the development team and that's how it worked.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Were you able to hear my answer? Because I'm not sure. My Wi-Fi is behaving a little weird. It's getting
No, I
connected,
can
disconnected.
hear you.
Okay, okay. So did you hear the answer for that, or should I repeat the answer?
No, I got it.
Okay. And it would be great, in just in case you can give a better version of the answer of any of the questions you are just writing or asking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay. So I think so. This missing requirement was came up from my side as a business analyst, or from the development team that they brought it into the picture. That was a little doubt I had about the question.
It is essentially from the BA side.
Okay. So at the first, like I had few meetings with the stakeholders, and stakeholders, there was like one uh, project manager involved and a project manager involved from and one executive management person from the company. Those were the stakeholders involved. While I faced this situation, uh, there was a time when they gave us a work on this. They wanted a mobile application basically, so they gave all the requirements, and I was assessing them while developing the PRD and also. So while that process, I found out that a few of the things that they just ignored, and I wrote them down. I made a presentation regarding it. I called a meeting with the stakeholders, and I tried to explain and convince them about the missing requirements, and they didn't agree on all of the things, but I was pretty convincing for all the major requirements that were missing, and we were able to sort it out.
Okay.
In this kind of question, should we actually tell about what actual functionalities or something like that is?
Yes, it is expected because if you don't convey your real-time
Mhm.
experience, the interviewer
Okay.
won't be convinced. That's the reason why I'm asking situational questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Because in your interview, questions won't be straightforward. Um, you would be, asked twisted question wherein they would try to
Mhm.
assess you based on your experience that you have put in your resume. They are expecting that you support the answer with some, some sort of functionalities or some sort of
Okay.
experience which would convey them that you have worked as a BA.
Okay. Uh, Okay. So basically, I normally don't face such bad situation, but I had once this, like, it was an internal project for the company I was working, and we had it's like, if it's internal project, sometimes um, the stakeholders are the company's people itself, so they take it for granted a little. So I had the situation when I wanted a requirement workshop to be organized, and the project manager of the other team, who was the major stakeholder for that product, he was pretty busy. I'm assuming he was pretty busy with his schedule, so he tried to cancel it and not work on it. So then I had a discussion with the person. Like, I tried to work with him the time schedule. I told him that we can do it little late or something, like off office hours. We can have a call or a conference call and to work it out. So I I worked actually off hours with the stakeholder and uh, cleared out the requirements workshop. We had a conference call for it. So. Okay, so um, like, in the very previous kind of a project, I would remember that we had this thing where we didn't control the change request actually. So we actually had a plan for that thing. It was any change that we made, we documented that change. We will always plan and implement it. So there are not much changes to occur. But if in case they do, we always maintain one a document page there. We would anyone would kind of write what changes or things their requirements have to be made, and then again we'll always have a thought process plan, and then only we'll make sure, and then only we'll implement the person.
Okay.
Okay, so as a business analyst, from my work experience till now, I would say that there's no actual ideal project environment, because you meet different kind of people every time, and there are different cases of requirements. So but for me, like, I would consider as, like, when the stakeholders are clear about their ideas or what actually they want as a product from the company, then it will be the best way. The environment will be like where they would understand and they are clear about it, they can convey it better. And as a business analyst, it would make my job much easier to just uh, convert that into a PRD or a requirement gathering thing that I could pass on to my development team, and they will be working on it. But uh, I find, as a methodology, I would say Agile is pretty good in the way that it works. It's quick, you get the results, you work on it, and you improvise it. So yeah, ideal project environment, I would say, where everyone is clear about what they want as their goals are straightforward, then it makes it pretty easy for a business analyst to work.
Okay.
Okay, so um, I would say there was this one situation when I was working for my university as kind of a business analyst, but not in a senior role. So I had a senior business analyst working on the project as a project manager also. So we had to work on one product for the other department, and before I joined it was like they pretty much followed a hybrid methodology, but they didn't actually implement the agile part of it. So I requested and took kind of a charge for that part, and I told the project manager that we should kind of meet the other department people and on a regular basis, because they don't have much idea about what they want, and that's how we can just get the better idea about the product, and we can also tell them and convey that this might be the difficult things. And so I actually introduced the agile part in the hybrid model that they were just saying but not actually implementing it.
Okay.
uh, the very first thing is, if the scope is being paid by the customer, I would just tell them that I'll try my best to manage everything that they are trying to want me to. But if that is out of bounds for the company and it is not feasible, then I'll try definitely say that it cannot be done because it was not mentioned in the first part. But I'll try and manage whatever is possible. So I had the situation once that they wanted to actually implement extra feature in the project, in which they wanted like wanted to track the product in real time, like with the maps, but that was not the part of the requirement. So I had to try and tell them that we can give you at least not the live tracker about it, but we can make like every 2 days or every shipping point it changes, we can make an update. And have that's how I try to manage not all the expectations from the user, but somehow I try to uh, implement a part of the scope in a feasible way for the company and for the stakeholder and the customer.
Okay, fair enough. So here is my feedback to you. This is only for you. So you are just answering the questions. Okay. Now, what I said you that whenever you are answering a question, you need to bring some sort of examples that would involve your real world project experience. And let's say if I had to consider this question, what did you do when you saw the scope is being creeped by the customer? You directly start with the process. But before starting that particular process, you have to first validate whether the requirements which the customer is asking, whether it's in scope or out of scope requirement. First step is validation. After validation, you come to a conclusion that this is out of scope requirement, and you would initiate conversation with different stakeholders. Now, when you are initiating a conversation, you would follow a plan. Essentially, that is your BA communication plan. You would see which stakeholder are needed to be notified about this particular request the customer is making or the scope creep that is making. You have to inform them. That is next step. You have to follow the BA communication plan and inform the respective stakeholder about this scope creep that is being asked by the customer. After that, basis on the discussion, you would reach out to the customer stating that we are fine with this particular requirement, but given the time box that is available with us, we may take some of the feature, we may not take some of the feature. Then you would seek their feedback. If every stakeholder agrees, are in agreement formally, then only you would start taking that particular requirement. Else, you would leave it up to your decision maker. So there are certain keywords that you need to use when you are answering any specific question. In our case, you have to first validate in scope and out of scope. So in scope and out of scope are the keywords that you need to include in your answer when someone asks you question about scope creeping. Then you have to follow a BA communication plan. Why you have to include that keyword? Because that's the document that would give you a visibility around who all are the stakeholder with whom you need to keep a I mean, keep a relation wherein they should be informed about any scope creep, because you cannot take a decision alone, because this is a big decision. If someone is asking you to do some free work, which is essentially indirectly they are asking, you have to first take official approval from respective stakeholder, the concerned stakeholder in that particular project. Then only you would communicate to the customer. So this way, I would say that you need to include some of the keywords in your answers when you are answering them. After that, you have to start with the initial process, how you would flow through the process. You don't answer the question as it is asked. Include some kind of background around it, why this could happen, what was your step, and give some example and then explain their question. That would be my feedback. Else you were good.
Okay, sure. I'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, who wants to come next? Karan, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes, so feasibility feasibility studies are analysis used in measuring the ability to complete a project successfully with all the factors and all the requirements mentioned.
Okay.
And the project managers basically use the feasibility studies to determine the positive and negative outcomes of the project before starting or investigating a project or before beginning of a project. So, I don't have an example here. I used it. So, like, I have a general example for this feasibility study.
Okay.
So, like, for example, if expansion of an airport is to be like the project is expansion of an airport, then in the feasibility study we need to determine if uh, how much material or the labor cost is required, or how would the project impact the commuters and travelers, whether it will be benefit for them or it's just not so much beneficial, and also the public opinion and for the expansion of the airport. So it basically gives an idea of the project before beginning or starting the current job.
Okay.
So yeah, so requirement versioning while creating the business requirement document. Differ, if a different or some different business analyst have previously created a business requirement document, and I am the one who is in charge for update, like creating or modifying that document, then I would have updated the version and updated the current BRD and uploaded all the relevant things which was not included in the previous version. So the version control like enables like multiple people to work on a project, on a single project at the same time, so that each person edits his or her own copy and like chooses when to share those changes with the rest of the team.
That is an answer to document versioning. I'm talking about requirements versioning.
Can I answer something?
Yeah, please go on.
So basically, requirement versioning is like documenting and maintaining like history of all the changes to a specific document. If I'm not wrong, like
Okay, so what happens essentially is when you are starting with your initial requirement gathering, you first baseline a set of requirements that is around 50 features. So let's say to a very basic, I would start with a login mechanism. Now a login would have a username and a password, or probably an email address or a password. That is my baseline requirement. Now when I want to modify that requirement and enhance that requirement, let's say I go for login via Facebook or login via Google. So these Facebook login and Google login are the two different versions of my base requirement, that is login via email ID and password. So whenever you are creating an enhancement to the existing requirement, essentially you are versioning that requirement to a newer version. The baseline requirements remains there. Every time you enhance the baseline requirement, a new version of that requirement is created.
So yeah, so functional decomposition is used during the project analysis phase to create the decomposition diagrams as part of the requirement specification document or the BRD. So it's basically a process of breaking down complex parts into smaller parts or smaller versions.
Right.
Sunil, so user story basically contains we assign the person the role like who's doing and priority and how long it's going to take, description and user acceptance criteria.
Okay, here I'm asking about the user story format. Which format you would be writing in user story? Let's say I want to write an user story for an agent who should be able to issue a policy. How you would write the sentence? Agent who is intending to issue a policy.
So format, is it like as I want to
Yes,
so that I can?
yes.
Okay, so is there like multiple formats or is this the only format?
This is the only format accepted
Only
globally.
format, right? Okay. Okay.
So this is the user, this is the benefit, and this is the outcome.
So I guess Sunil, the outcome is like for why we are building the user story.
Yes.
Okay.
Sunil, is it specific to someone or can I answer too?
You can answer it. I'm looking for
Okay.
answers.
Okay. So basic flow is like the journal view flow that the usual flow that will be in the use case diagram. It is usually like represented by association or association. And the other is the alternate flow is the flow that happens in this in case of any exception or something, and is represented by extension. And it can be possible like for example, if I'm going to an ATM to withdraw some money, so the normal would be choosing options will be linked by association. For example, if I want to deposit cash, or if I want to withdraw cash, or if I want to deposit a check, and then after that the transaction will go into validation, so it will go through a basic flow. And in case my details were not able to be like validated because of some system error or something, so it will come under an alternate flow, and maybe it will be linked through extension.
Okay. Now let me quickly assess Pradeep. I think Pradeep is only pending.
Yeah, sorry. So, when I was working with Johnson and Johnson, I had to mentor three people who joined as part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
So I was responsible for training them how to use the existing system. We had a system called Links, and in that,
Mm-hmm.
I had to explain them like the tools, and I had to explain them the process basically, and also had to train them the supply chain, the concepts. So the approach was basically like first I made them because they were already equipped with theoretical knowledge. So I just have to show them for example, I took certain documents and I showed them what kind of fields it had and what does it, and like usually what way that, because we were support team, so basically I just have to explain them how to address these issues and where to find these and concepts. I provided them with like good documentation which I had when I was part of the rollout. I actually documented all the knowledge transfer which we had, and like I gave them detailed documents, and when and wherever they had doubts, like I guided them to like learn the whole concept flow and also the tools how to use it.
Okay, excellent.
So for this, when you had to facilitate a requirements gathering activity where your stakeholders are not at the same city. So in this situation, when I had to gather requirements from stakeholder who was not in the same location, so I have actually worked with many clients and like stakeholders basically in different countries. So usually the first we plan it what will be the feasible timing.
Mm-hmm.
So once I get confirmation, when all the stakeholders and the people who are part of the meeting, like they're okay with it, so we confirm the timing and then we send out the request. So mostly we did it through WebEx, so everybody was able to connect, and we enabled video chat for a better face-to-face understanding. So yeah, that's how I plan meeting with stakeholders from different locations.
Okay, and what is that document you referred to identify the stakeholders' timing preference? The communication plan.
Oh, stakeholder communication plan.
Yeah. So you need to put that keyword.
Oh, okay, okay.
So the document which I am copy pasting, those are the real interview questions that have been asked by one of the investment banks, and my friend attended that. Again, she is in US. So these are actually real interview questions being asked there.
Is it the same document, Sunil, that was like uploaded that you uploaded, or
No,
this is a different
no,
this is
this
a
is a
different
different
document?
document.
Can you share this too with us?
I would share it, but before that, I would conduct one more mock interview next Sunday
Okay.
because I
Okay.
feel Okay, let us finish this, then I'll say.
Okay.
Pradeep, please go on.
Okay. So this is main part of business analyst, like gathering requirements from stakeholders. So usually the main, from my past experience, like I've used a couple of techniques where brainstorming was, I felt, one of the effective ones, where they stood together with all the stakeholders and users and gather all the requirements which they had, and putting it on like a document presentation about it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even like when they were like specific approach of any certain requirements, so we used like focus groups where all the experts gathered and actually we focused on a single topic. That was one of the, I found, also a very successful one. And in one project where I already went like to gather requirements at that time, document analysis worked. So the existing one, the previous people who took requirements, so that technique also worked very well. And also one project where requirements workshop, which was a good technique which I followed to gather all the requirements, and then we came up with all the main requirements and showed all the business requirement documents. So these techniques I found it very useful from my experience.
Okay. Okay, so here is my feedback. I would start with Pradeep. So Pradeep answers the question the way it should be answered in a particular interview. His answers contain all the situation which gives me a feeling that he has worked as a business analyst and he has, uh, you know, uh, gone through this situation which I am putting in front of him. Now coming to Mohit, Mohit also has a good answering skills, but again he is just answering to the questions. He is, I mean, you are not putting the scenarios that I'm expecting at as an interviewer, like the keywords or a specific example that I'm supposed to, I'm looking for in this particular answer which I'm asking you. Because why I'm asking you scenario based question is like I'm trying to uncover that whether you have worked as a business analyst or not. You are answering the questions, that's really good. You are very good in terms of understanding the concepts, you know what to do when, but try to include some keywords when you are answering a certain situational questions, because the keywords or the document which you have referred to solve a particular problem, that is what a business analyst, sorry, your interviewer is looking for. That if you have worked as a business analyst, then you know about this particular document, and in this particular situation which stakeholder you would reach out to and what would be your next course of action. That is what they are looking for, and that is how they conclude that whether you have worked as a business analyst or not. Because I do interview some of the business analysts, and I uh, follow the same convention wherein I put the situational question and try to uncover whether they have actually worked as a business analyst or not. Because these days many people, they are trying to transition their career from QA to developer. I am also being one of them. But the thing is, there is something called as interest, and there is something called as you just want that particular designation. Now, I'm not saying that you won't succeed in your interview, but after succeeding in your interview, how would you sustain in that particular job? That is a big question. No matter by hook or crook you get into that particular job, if you are not aware of the things or the core business analysis process, how would you sustain in that particular job? And my intention throughout this session was to make the sessions as realistic as possible, how things work in the industry, so that it's not only about clearing interview, it's about after clearing sustaining that particular designation in which you are being selected. So for Mohit, I would say he is very good in terms of concepts. He is very good in terms of explaining the questions, but you need to put some keywords that are expected, and you need to put some situation. Now, same feedback goes to Achal as well, which I have already given. And Karan, please don't get offended. You need to prepare. That's what my feedback would be. And I would be conducting one more mock interview because I'm not convinced with your answers. If you want, I can give you some situational questions. You don't have to come unprepared. You write the answer in a particular paper, in a particular notebook. It's fine with me. You read your answer in that particular mock interview. I would give you around 25 to 30 questions. which we would discuss after our Sunday's project presentation, wherein you have to read through your answers, what you have written, based on the feedback which I have given you.
Yeah, that would be good.
So that is it.